Rickie Lee Jones, born November 8, 1954, is an American vocalist, musician, songwriter, producer, actor and narrator. Over the course of a career that spans 5 decades, Jones has recorded in various musical styles including rock, R&B, blues, pop, soul, and jazz. Jones is a 2-time Grammy Award winner. Additionally, she was listed at number 30 on VH1's 100 Greatest Women in Rock and Roll in 1999. Early life. Jones was born the third of 4 children to Betty and Richard Jones on the north side of Chicago, Illinois, on November 8, 1954. Her paternal grandfather, Frank "Pegleg" Jones, and her grandmother, Myrtle Lee, a dancer, were vaudevillians based in Chicago. A singer, dancer and comedian, Pegleg Jones' routine consisted of playing the ukulele, singing ballads, and telling stories. Jones' father, one of 4 children, was a World War II veteran, a singer, songwriter, painter, and trumpet player. Her father worked as a waiter. Her mother, Betty, was raised in orphanages in Ohio with her 3 brothers until she was old enough to leave. Betty and Richard met in a drugstore coffee shop. The family moved to Arizona in 1959, and the landscape provided imagery. Last Chance Texaco, Flying Cowboys. For her early music, she grew up riding horses, studying dance, and practicing swimming with her AAU coach before and after school. When she was 10 years old, the family moved to Olympia, Washington, where her father abandoned them. Jones dropped out of school in the 11th grade, took the GED test and enrolled in college in Tacoma. She moved to Huntington Beach, California, on her 18th birthday. Career start: 1975 to 1979. At the age of 21, Jones began to play in clubs in Venice. She met Alfred Johnson, a piano player and songwriter. Together they wrote "Weasel and the White Boys Cool" and "Company," which would later appear on Jones' debut album. By 1977, Jones was performing original material at the A La Carte Club in Hollywood with Johnson's Nick Matte. A neighbor took an interest in Jones' music and helped her get publicity photos with Bonnie Shiftman, who was then at A&M. And in their off hours the 3 of them shot Jones's first photos. Jones played music in showcases, worked with cover bands in clubs, and sat in with Venice jazz bands. In 1977, Jones met Tom Waits at the Troubadour after her friend Ivan Ulz's show, in which she had sung her father's song, "The Moon is Made of Gold," and a few of her own songs. Jones and Waits were lovers at the outset of her career, creating a lifelong association with one another. Jones also met Chucky Weiss, who would figure prominently in her early career. In early 1978, through the efforts of ULZ, she came to the attention of Dr. John and Little Feat's Lowell George. ULZ introduced Lowell George to Jones' composition, "Easy Money," by singing it to him over the telephone. George recorded her song for his first solo record, "Thanks, I'll Eat It Here," in 1978. It became the only single for George's final record before his death. A 4-song demo of material was circulated around the L.A. music scene in 1978. With Emmylou Harris later recalling that she had heard an early version of the Last Chance Texaco on the demo tape. The recordings came to the attention of Lenny Waronker, producer and executive at Warner Brothers Records, and Tommy Lippimer. Jones was courted by the major labels, and after a bidding war, Jones chose Waronker because of his work with Randy Newman, and because, she said, she had a vision of standing in his office the moment she saw his name on the back of Newman's Sail Away album. Waronker signed Jones to Warner Brothers Records for a 5-record deal. Work commenced on her debut album, co-produced by Waronker and Russ Titelman. Early years: 1979 to 82. Rickie Lee Jones was released in March 1979 and became a hit, buoyed by the success of the jazz-flavored single, Chucky's In Love, which hit No. 4 on the Billboard Hot 100, and featured an accompanying music video. The album, which included guest appearances by Dr. John, Randy Newman, and Michael McDonald, went to No. 3 on the Billboard 200 and produced another top 40 hit with A Young Blood. No. 40. In late 1979, her appearance as an unknown, 1 month after her debut record had been released, on Saturday Night Live on April 7, 1979, sparked an overnight sensation. She performed Chucky's In Love and Coolsville. Jones was covered by Time magazine on her very first professional show in Boston, and they dubbed her the Duchess of Coolsville. Touring after the album's release, she played Carnegie Hall on July 22, 1979. Members of her group included native New York guitarist Buzz Feiton, who was featured on the album and would appear in her recorded works for over a decade. Following a successful world tour, Jones appeared on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine. The announcement of Lowell George's death appeared in the same Rolling Stone cover featuring Rickie Lee Jones crouching in a black bra and white beret, an issue that would become the largest selling issue in the magazine's history up to that time. Jones secured 4 nominations at the 22nd Annual Grammy Awards: Song of the Year and Best Pop Vocal Performance Female for Chucky's In Love, Best Rock Vocal Performance Female for Last Chance Texaco, and Best New Artist, which she won. Before the 1980 ceremony, Jones told her mentor Bob Reger that she would not attend, changing her mind at the last minute. The two raced to the event just in time for her to walk up and collect her Best New Artist trophy. In her leather jacket and boa, signature beret and gloves. In her acceptance speech, she thanked her lawyers and her accountant, which earned laughter and applause from the audience. In 1980, Francis Ford Coppola asked Jones to collaborate with Waits on his upcoming film One from the Heart, but she balked, citing the recent breakup that had occurred sometime between late 1979 and early 1980. Coppola responded that it would be perfect for the film, since the two main characters in the film are separated, and he asked her to reconsider. Jones still refused the job, a decision she later admitted to regretting. It was then that Waits met his future wife, and Jones began work on her follow-up album, Pirates, written and recorded partly in reaction to the breakup of her relationship with Waits. After Waits and Jones broke up, Jones became involved with her friend Sal Bernardi, who had inspired the song Weasel and the White Boys Cool. He remained a personal and musical partner for decades. After moving to New York City, Jones spent the majority of 1981 working on Pirates. The songs were written between September 1979 and June 1981, when the last lyrics to Traces of the Western Slope and the last bass on A Lucky Guy were put down. The recording sessions finally yielded Pirates in July 1981. The songs included We Belong Together and A Lucky Guy, both inspired by Waits. Donald Fagen of Steely Dan, Randy Newman, the Brecker Brothers, and Steve Gadd were a few of the musicians who performed on the album. Rolling Stone remained a fervent supporter of Jones, with a second cover feature in 1981. The magazine also included her glowing 5-star assessment of Pirates. which became a commercially successful follow-up by reaching No. 5 on the Billboard 200. A single, "A Lucky Guy," became the only Billboard Hot 100 hit from the album, peaking at No. 64. But Pirates, "So Long Lonely Avenue," and Woody and Dutch on the Slow Train to Peking became minor top 40 hits on the Billboard mainstream rock chart. More important, historically, is the fact that in America, Woody and Dutch became a kind of commercial mainstay. The finger snaps and jive talk beat were imitated in advertisements for McDonald's, Dr. Pepper, and others. Another lengthy and successful tour into 1982 followed, before Jones moved back to California, settling in San Francisco. A partial tour, Memento, the EP Girl at Her Volcano, was issued originally as a 10" record in 1983, featuring a mix of live and studio cover versions of jazz and pop standards, as well as one Jones original, "Hey, Bub," which was recorded for Pirates. Jones then relocated to Paris. Period of transition, 1983 to 89. In 1983, Jones lived in Paris for 4 months, writing new material for her third full-length solo album, The Magazine. She began to pursue jazz standards, recording "The Moon is Made of Gold," which was written by her father, and "Autumn Leaves" for Rob Wasserman's album Duets in 1985. Jones took a 4-year break from her recording schedule, largely attributed to the deaths of her mentor Bob Reger and her father, Richard Loris Jones. That same year, Jones returned to the United States in 1987 after a tour of Israel and Norway, and the imminent birth of her daughter brought her home to Ojai, California. In September 1988, work began on her 4th solo album following another Grammy nomination for her Wasserman collaboration, Autumn Leaves. With songs dating from the mid-1980s, Jones teamed up with Steely Dan's Walter Becker to craft Flying Cowboys, which was released on the Geffen Records label in September 1989. Jones also included some writing collaborations with her husband Pascal Nabe-Meyer, Sal Bernardi, and The Horses. Quote, co-written with Becker, was featured in the movie Jerry Maguire and became an Australian No. 1 hit single for Daryl Braithwaite in 1991. The album made the US Top 40, reaching No. 39 on the Billboard 200, with the college radio hit Satellites making it to No. 23 on the Billboard Modern Rock Tracks chart. Jones ended the decade on a high note with her duet with Dr. John, a cover of Macon, Whoopee, winning her 2nd Grammy Award, this time in the category of Best Jazz Vocal Collaboration, Experimentation and Change, 1990 to 2001. Following a tour with Lyle Lovett, Jones enlisted David Was to helm her idiosyncratic album of covers, pop, ranging from jazz and blues standards to Tin Pan Alley to Jimi Hendrix's Up From the Skies. The album, released in September 1991, was a hit on the Billboard Contemporary Jazz Albums, peaking at No. 8, but became her least commercially successful record yet, reaching No. 121 on the Billboard 200. Soon after, the Orb issued Little Fluffy Clouds, featuring a sampled Jones interview. However, Jones' record company objected to the unauthorized use of her voice and pursued the issue in the legal system. In 1992 she toured extensively with Rob Wasserman, with whom she had collaborated in the mid-1980s. Her swan song for Geffen Records was Traffic from Paradise, released in September 1993. The album was slightly more successful than its predecessor, reaching No. 111 on the Billboard 200. and was notable for its collaboration with Leo Kottke, its musical diversity, and a cover of David Bowie's Rebel Rebel, which was originally planned to be the title track for the Oscar-winning film Boys Don't Cry. A number of television and movies had licensed her work in these years, including House M.D., 30-something, Frankie and Johnny, When a Man Loves a Woman, Jerry Maguire, Friends with Money, and the French film Subway. Jones sang a duet with Lyle Lovett on North Dakota for his 1992 album Joshua Judge's Ruth. Jones' first solo shows in 1994 paved the way for her unplugged acoustic album Naked Songs, released in September 1995 through a one-off deal with Reprise Records. The album, which reached No. 121 on the Billboard 200, featured acoustic reworkings of Jones' classics and album material, but no new songs, emphasizing her experimentation and change. Jones embraced electronic music for Ghosty Head, released on Reprise Records in June 1997. The album, a collaboration with Rick Boston, both are credited with production and with 21 instruments in common, found Jones employing beats, loops, and electronic rhythms, and also showcased Jones' connection with the trip-hop movement of the mid to late 1990s. Despite critical acclaim, it did not meet with commercial success, peaking at No. 159 on the Billboard 200. Jones' second album of cover versions, It's Like This, was released on the independent record label Artemis Records in September 2000. The album included cover versions of material by artists including the Beatles, Steely Dan, Marvin Gaye, and the Gershwin brothers. The album made it onto 3 Billboard charts, No. 148 on the Billboard 200, No. 10 on Top Internet Albums, and No. 42 on Top Independent Albums. The album also secured Jones another Grammy nomination for Best Traditional Pop Vocal Album. After starting up her official website, Artemis issued an archival Jones release, Live at Red Rocks, in November 2001, featuring material recorded during the Flying Cowboys era tour of 1989-1990. Including a Lyle Lovett duet, Artistic Renaissance, 2002 and beyond. After Ghosty Head, Jones largely retired from public view and admitted that she had battled writer's block. She spent much of her time at her home in Tacoma, Washington, tending her garden and bringing up her now teenage daughter Charlotte. Released on the independent label V2 in October 2003. The Evening of My Best Day featured influences from jazz, Celtic folk, blues, R&B, rock, and gospel, and spawned a successful and lengthy spurt of touring. The album peaked at No. 189 on the Billboard 200. She invited punk bass icon Mike Watt, the Minutemen, Iggy Pop, to perform on It Takes You There, while Ugly Man was a direct aim at the George Bush regime, evoking, with an anthem-like Hugh Masekela arrangement, what she termed the Black Panther horns, and calling for revolution everywhere that you're not looking. Revolution. Quote, renewed interest in Jones led to the 3-disc anthology Duchess of Coolsville, an anthology released through reissue specialists Rhino in June 2005. A lavish package. The alphabetically arranged release featured album songs, live material, covers, and demos, and featured essays by Jones as well as various collaborators, as well as tributes from artists including Randy Newman, Walter Becker, Quincy Jones, and Tori Amos. Also in 2005, Jones was invited to take part in her boyfriend and collaborator Lee Cantelan's music version of his book The Words, a book of the words of Christ. set into simple chapters and themes. Cantolin's idea was to have various artists recite the text over primal rock music, but Jones elected to try something that had never been done: to improvise her own impression of the text's melody and lyric in stream of consciousness sessions, rather than read Jesus's words. The sessions were recorded at an artist's loft on Exposition Boulevard in Culver City. When Cantillon could no longer finish the project, Jones picked it up as her own record and hired Rob Schnapf to finish the production at Sunset Sound in 2007. And the result was the Sermon on Exposition Boulevard, released on the independent New West Records in February 2007. It included Circle in the Sand, recorded for the soundtrack to the film Friends with Money, 2006, for which Jones also cut Hillbilly Song. The Sermon on Exposition Boulevard debuted at No. 158 on the Billboard 200 and No. 12 on the Top Independent Albums tally. Writer Ann Powers included this on her list of Grammy-worthy CDs for 2007. For her next project, Jones opted to finish half-written songs dating back as far as 1986, Wild Girl, as well as include new ones. The 2008 penned The Gospel of Carlos, Norman and Smith, Bonfires, working closely with longtime collaborator David Kalish, with whom Jones first worked on 1981's Pirates. Jones released Balm in Gilead on the Fantasy label in November 2009. The album also included a new recording of The Moon is Made of Gold, a song written by her father Richard Lawrence Jones in 1954. Ben Harper, Victoria Williams, John Bryan, Alison Krauss and the late Vic Chestnut all made contributions to the album. In May 2010, Jones performed at the Sydney Opera House as a part of the Vivid Festival. On September 18, 2012, Jones released The Devil You Know on Concord Records. The Devil You Know includes a collection of covers produced by famed musician Ben Harper, including a solo version of Sympathy for the Devil. Other work. In 2001, Jones was the organizer of the web community Furniture for the People, which is involved in gardening, social activism, bootleg exchange and left-wing politics. She has produced records, including Leo Kotka's Peculiarazzo, and provided a voiceover for Pinocchio and the Emperor of the Night, in which she played the Blue Fairy, known as the Good Fairy, a fairy godmother in the film. Jones also enjoys gardening. Discography. Studio albums. Notes. A peaked position on Billboard Top Contemporary Jazz Chart. Compilation albums. Singles. Other contributions. WFUV. City Folk Live 7, 2004. Mink Coat at the Bus Stop. Little Fluffy Clouds, 1990-93. Spoken word sampled by British ambient house group The Orb, charting 3 times on the UK singles chart. No. 87. 1990. No. 95. 1991. And No. 10. 1993. Scarecrow, 1985. Provided backing vocals on Between a Laugh and a Tear by John Cougar Mellencamp. Influence on other arts. In 2007, the French painter Jacques Benoit produced a series of 9 canvases inspired by traces of the Western Slopes. Pirates LP. Official website. Audio interview with Rickie Lee Jones on the Soda Jerker on Songwriting podcast.